Operation Praying Mantis, the fierce U.S. Navy retaliation for the mining of the USS Samuel B. Roberts by Iranian forces, began on April 18, 1988. As the first light of dawn crept over the Persian Gulf, the Vietnam War-era Belknap-class destroyer USS Wainwright surged forward to execute her mission. She led the charge in the retaliatory campaign. Guided by the latest intelligence, Wainwright's targeting systems locked onto the Sasan oil platform. Working in coordination with other ships, her missiles struck the platform, engulfing it in flames and thick smoke. As smoke plumed into the sky, Wainwright quickly adjusted her course toward the Syria oil platform. Her crew launched another wave of missiles, causing further destruction. With the attack complete, the ship and her crew prepared for the next stage of their mission when an unexpected development occurred. The Iranian Common-class fast attack craft Joshan engaged the destroyer, firing machine guns in an attempt to inflict casualties on the American crew. Wainwright responded immediately, aligning her Mark 42 gun and Harpoon missile launchers for a deadly strike. A battle was set to unfold between the highly advanced American warship and the much smaller Iranian vessel. USS Wainwright DLG-28, a Belknap-class destroyer later designated a cruiser, was the third U.S. Navy vessel named after Commander Jonathan Mayhew Wainwright, a Civil War hero who served valiantly at Forts Jackson and St. Philip and died at the Battle of Galveston in 1863. His courageous service ensured his name would be remembered in naval tradition. Wainwright III was laid down on July 2, 1962, in Bath, Maine, by Bath Iron Works Corporation. She was launched on April 25, 1965, sponsored by Richard W. Wainwright as the United States ramped up for military engagement in Southeast Asia. She was commissioned on January 8, 1966, at the Boston Naval Shipyard under the command of Captain Robert P. Foreman. As a Belknap-class cruiser, Wainwright was part of a class of single-ended guided missile cruisers, with missile armament only at the foredeck. Her initial armament included a 5-inch 54 caliber Mark 42 gun on the quarterdeck and a twin-rail RIM-2 Terrier, Mark 10 launcher forward, equipped with over 40 SN-2 ER missiles. The Mk-10 launcher could also fire 20 RUR-5 ASROC anti-submarine missiles in all weather and sea conditions without needing a separate launcher. Over the years, Wainwright's weaponry was upgraded to include 2 Phalanx close-in weapon systems, 2 Mark 46 torpedo launchers, and 2 Harpoon missile launchers. The Phalanx system was a modern automated gun designed to destroy incoming aircraft and missiles with a radar-guided Gatling gun capable of firing armor-piercing rounds at high speed. Her propulsion system featured 4 high-pressure boilers, 2 geared steam turbines, and 2 shafts generating over 85,000 horsepower, enabling speeds over 32 knots. She was also fitted with advanced radar systems, including the AN/SPS-10 for surface searches, AN/SPS-48-3D, and AN/SPS-49-2D air search radars, and AN/SPG-55 missile fire control radars. These systems provided full situational awareness for threats above and below the sea. After commissioning, Wainwright conducted a shakedown cruise to test her missile and sonar capabilities. She fired her main gun at Calibre Island and launched several Terrier missiles. In April 1967, she passed through the Panama Canal, arriving in San Diego before departing for Pearl Harbor and then Southeast Asia to support U.S. troops in Vietnam. On June 6, 1967, she reached the Tonkin Gulf to begin her first tour, taking over PIRAZ duties from USS Long Beach. Her mission was to maintain radar and visual surveillance to identify enemy aircraft. She held a fixed position to serve as a reference point for strike aircraft and supported search and rescue helicopters, using her as a launch base. During this time, a SAR helicopter crashed on her flight deck with only minor damage. After a period in Sasebo and Okinawa, she resumed PIRAZ duty in August, completing 27 days of operations before visiting Hong Kong. On her third Vietnam tour, Wainwright served as screen commander for 2 aircraft carriers on Yankee Station and acted as an anti-aircraft warfare command ship for Task Force 77. Her final Vietnam combat assignment ended on September 28, 1967. In 1968, Wainwright shifted to Charleston and began duties as a training vessel for the destroyer school in Newport. She later took part in readiness exercises in the West Indies. After transiting the Panama Canal again in June 1968, following the TET offensive, she stopped at Pearl Harbor, Guam, and Subic Bay on her way to Southeast Asia. Reassigned to PIRAZ duty, she endured a typhoon and promptly resumed operations. In mid-September, she conducted port visits before returning to duty in October, controlling airspace over the Tonkin Gulf. In January 1969, Wainwright began her final PIRAZ assignment. Her return journey included stops in the Philippines, Sydney, Auckland, and Papeete, before arriving in Charleston in February. She underwent inspections and engaged in several military exercises, including a presidential sea power demonstration and exercises Exotic Dancer and Spark Plug. In August, she began her first major overhaul at the Charleston Naval Shipyard, a mark of her long and faithful service. After resuming full operational status in February 1970, Wainwright conducted intensive training off the coasts of Florida and Virginia. In March, she headed to the Atlantic Fleet Weapons Range near Puerto Rico for live-fire exercises. In April, she was dispatched to intercept 3 Haitian Coast Guard vessels that had fled following a failed coup. After locating one vessel near Guantanamo Bay, she maintained position as American officials peacefully boarded it. She then escorted the remaining 2 vessels back to Guantanamo Bay. A different mission emerged in May 1970 when the ship was assigned to intercept a Soviet task group. Engaging with 2 Russian ships, one a guided missile cruiser and the other a destroyer, the encounter intensified with the arrival of 2 submarines, an oiler, and a submarine tender. This group entered port at Cienfuegos, Cuba, in a moment that echoed the tension of the 1962 missile crisis. After this encounter, Wainwright returned to Guantanamo Bay for further training. In June, she docked at Charleston for 2 months of maintenance and preparation for her next deployment to the Far East, aligning with President Nixon's Vietnamization policy. In August, she departed for her 3rd and final tour in Indochina, transiting through the Panama Canal and Pearl Harbor before reaching Yokosuka, Japan by September 1970. Over the following 2 months, Wainwright participated in anti-submarine warfare exercises in the Sea of Japan with Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force units, taking breaks in Yokosuka and Sasebo for rest and repair. In early November, she proceeded to the Taiwan Strait and returned to the Tonkin Gulf for her last duty stint in Vietnam. During the night of November 21, 1970, Wainwright played a key role in a large-scale deception operation supporting the Army and Air Force's mission to rescue American POWs from Sun Tay in North Vietnam. Equipped with advanced seaborne radar, she served as the Navy's air traffic control hub, known as Red Crown, monitoring all aircraft movements over the Gulf of Tonkin. Her NTDDS-enabled systems allowed for real-time tracking of aircraft activity, constantly updating with each radar sweep. For more than 2 hours, radar controllers aboard Wainwright tracked a large formation of radio-silent and blacked-out Navy and Air Force aircraft, flying complex and overlapping routes over North Vietnam and the Gulf. Each aircraft's altitude and timing were meticulously tracked using identification friend or foe systems. Wainwright's PIRAZ coverage ensured complete regional awareness, enabling aircraft to fly coordinated missions from the Gulf to the mountainous regions beyond the Black River. The Navy could also listen to radio communications from both friendly and enemy air crews, providing valuable intelligence on enemy responses. While the Navy and Air Force created distractions using data supplied by Wainwright, a raiding force of helicopters and support aircraft launched from Thailand. The deception was successful, though the rescue mission itself found the POW camp empty. Nonetheless, the operation demonstrated the capability of joint forces coordination and laid the foundation for future collaborative military efforts. On November 14, 1970, Wainwright relieved USS Jouett on PIRAZ Station as the Northern Gulf's air coordinator. She was later relieved by USS Chicago, but retained the role of Northern SAR coordinator. For nearly a month, she moved between Northern and Southern SAR stations and took part in Operation Beacon Tower in mid-December, a 3-day exercise aimed at strengthening readiness against air and surface threats. On December 16th, she exited the combat zone and sailed to Singapore to celebrate Christmas. She reached Subic Bay in the Philippines on December 29th. Departing the Philippines on January 4th, 1971, she arrived in Hong Kong for a short visit before returning to the Tonkin Gulf for 2 more weeks of operations. Throughout the year, Wainwright continued training in the Atlantic and patrolled waters off South America, the Caribbean, and Africa. In January 1972, she underwent a conversion process ahead of her Mediterranean deployment. That December, her crew visited Rota, Spain, then entered the Mediterranean for joint exercises with Allied vessels. While training in Greek waters, she tracked and identified 4 Soviet submarines attempting to avoid NATO detection. Following her successful European operations, Wainwright returned to the U.S. for an overhaul. In March 1975, she became the first U.S. ship to visit Romania in over 50 years. On April 18, 1988, she was once again thrust into action during Operation Praying Mantis, a U.S. Navy retaliation for the Iranian mining of the USS Samuel B. Roberts, which had been patrolling the Persian Gulf. The mining, which occurred on April 14th, was perceived as a direct threat to Operation Earnest Will, designed to protect reflagged Kuwaiti oil tankers from Iranian aggression. Further investigation by Navy divers uncovered mines linked to earlier Iranian stockpiles seized in 1987. In response, the U.S. Navy launched its largest surface engagement since World War II. On April 18th, a task force of surface vessels, supported by aircraft from USS Enterprise, initiated the counterstrike. In coordination with other destroyers and the amphibious transport dock USS Trenton, Wainwright attacked the Sasson and Surrey oil platforms. U.S. Marines stormed the Sasson platform, gathered intelligence, and disabled the site. Iran retaliated by dispatching Boghammer speedboats to conduct attacks across the Gulf. One A-6E intruder aircraft from VA-95 sunk 1 speedboat and damaged others. The escalation intensified when the Iranian fast attack craft Joshin challenged Wainwright, launching a Harpoon missile. Wainwright responded with 4 Standard missiles. Further strikes from USS Bagley led to Joshin's destruction. The Iranian frigate Sahan joined the battle against another American group, but was sunk following a missile exchange, overwhelmed by superior U.S. firepower. The operation resulted in the destruction of 2 Iranian warships and 6 speedboats, marking the first surface-to-surface missile battle in U.S. Navy history. This operation compelled Iran to accept a ceasefire with Iraq later that year, ending an 8-year war. Wainwright was decommissioned on November 10, 1993, and remained in the reserve fleet for nearly a decade. In June 2002, she was used as a live-fire target by the British Royal Navy. Though hit by 2 Harpoon missiles from HMS Richmond, she stayed afloat overnight. The next day, she was struck by a spearfish torpedo from HMS Tireless, hitting the bow. Finally, American aircraft strafed and damaged her, and explosive charges sent her to the ocean floor.